I've made lists for the best modern turn-based, action, and tactical JRPGs. Now it's time to put them all together in one mega list to crown the 10 best overall JRPGs of the modern era. Now before we dive in, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Omni Heroes. In this heroic fantasy casual strategy RPG, you take up arms as an Omni Guardian. You're tasked with rescuing the gorgeous Valkyries from nasty demons. To aid you in your fight, you can summon over 100 super cool characters to build your dream team comps of 5. Omni Heroes' X Factor is its unique synergy system. Depending on your team comp's makeup, you can create 17 different kinds of synergies to give you a unique advantage in battle. There's virtually limitless team comps, so you can mix and match to find the perfect fit for your playstyle. Omni Heroes is also set to drop its epic Season 1 on January 12th. Here you can experience the brand new storyline, intense roguelike dungeons, and a guild vs guild mode. There's also 4 new sick looking heroes, Elmer, Althea, Gloria, and Sandra, that you're going to want to add to your team. And if you've never played Omni Heroes before, now's the perfect time, as you can claim 777 times 3 free summons with 5 legendary characters guaranteed in the first week. Oh, and by the way, it's also received recommendations from both the Google Play and App Store. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description to download and start playing today. Thanks once again to Omni Heroes for sponsoring this video, and now on with the video. I'm so glad that I get to talk about Sakura Wars again because it's one of my favorite games. Now, admittedly, this is mostly a visual novel style game where you're talking to characters most of the time, but there is quite a few segments with mech action combat. And the combat system is very reminiscent of a warrior style game where you're hacking and slashing, there's a lot of enemies on screen at once. However, each character has a very distinct combat style. To me, the 2 characters that I thought were the most effective were Hatsuho with her giant hammer that can just swing around and hit everything, and then Anastasia, who had her gun that was just good from range and did a ton of damage. But like I said, to me, it's all about the story and the characters. In between combat segments or just big story moments, you get a lot of time to spend one-on-one time with all the different characters and get to know them really well. Some of them can be really heartwarming and cool moments, and then some can just be really funny. And because each character has such a distinct personality, it was so much fun talking to them and getting their different points of view on either the overall story or in these different free time segments. For me, my personal favorite character and the girl that I chose at the end was Claris. She's kind of the shy bookworm, but she opens up a little bit and you allow her to write her own play, as that's what you're doing. You basically run this big play center. Oh, also, I can't forget to mention that amazing soundtrack. The year that game came out, I put it in so many videos, and I can't help but put it in right now because that theme song, it just gets me pumped up. It's sort of like a Saturday morning cartoon song that you just want to play over and over again, and thankfully they play it quite a bit in this game. To me, Sakura Wars is one of the best hidden gems you'll ever play. It's so fantastic. It has an amazing cast of characters, so if you haven't already, be sure you check it out. The original Valkyria Chronicles is such an underrated masterpiece in pretty much every way. It has such a gorgeous watercolor anime art style and is hands down one of PS3's best looking games. It also has a compelling story that has a really unique perspective on war. You'll get invested right away with the main characters Alicia and Welkin as their town gets destroyed. There's also moments where you share some sad yet tender moments with the enemies. And when party members die, it's truly heartbreaking. And I'm not gonna lie, I cried several times through my time playing this game. And what I really applaud Valkyria Chronicles for is creating a kind of a brand new strategy RPG. It's this mix of real-time yet turn-based hybrid. Each character does have their own turn where they have a limited range of movement and then they take their actions. But what's interesting is when you attack, you have to actually aim your gun down the sights. There's no mysterious die roll hit percentage. Although there are still hit percentages, it's not quite the same way. You do have much more control over it. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this is one of the 5 most underrated franchises in all of gaming. It's so good, and more people need to play it, especially the original Valkyria Chronicles. Now, one game I'm sure you've heard a lot about on this channel, if you're familiar with me, is Chained Echoes. Now, I was tracking it throughout the year, and I was like, okay, I knew this game was going to be special because it looked really neat, but I did not expect it to be this good. Again, like I've said before, the thing that really catches your eye is the art style. There's a lot of pixel RPGs out there, but to me, this one, there's something different about it. Something about the colors, the animation, the size of the character models. They just went one step beyond, and it looks incredible. But I think what really ties it together and makes it truly special is its combat system. The overdrive system in Chained Echoes is brilliant. You know, in a lot of turn-based RPGs, you kind of just spam the most powerful attack or your basic attack, and you're not really even thinking about it. But what Chained Echoes does, it says, hey, you know, we're gonna make the combat pretty fast-paced. You have to stop and think about what you're doing so your meter doesn't get too far one way or another. You have to manage it. So you can either do attacks that reduce the meter so you can stay in that green zone and do more damage and take less damage, or, you know, if you're not careful, it goes all the way to the right and you're much more vulnerable. So throughout the game, it was really fun to keep keep that balanced. It wasn't just in the boss fights, it was in random encounters throughout the world. You know, we get these big AAA JRPGs, and there's obviously a lot in this video, but I love that we still get little indie games like Chained Echoes that come out of nowhere and really surprise us, and I hope we get many more like this for years to come. Previously, I listed the original Octopath Traveler, but 2 is just so much better and I had to include it. In a lot of ways, it's pretty much the same game, but also improved the game dramatically. It retains the same incredible visual style, dynamic turn-based combat system, but also slightly refines both. Now there's a day-night cycle that makes for some gorgeous scenes at night, particularly with lanterns and water. The combat system also adds a new special ability for each character that adds a whole new dynamic twist. I think the biggest improvement though is the writing. Way more of the characters have interesting stories you want to actually see to the very end. They also added more opportunities for characters to actually interact with each other in the story. Personally, my favorites were Throne, Agnia, and Hikari. I just couldn't wait to see how all their stories concluded. I seriously hope they just keep making Octopath Traveler games forever because I can't get enough of them. I can say without hesitation that Tales of Arise is my favorite game in the series. I think it came down to basically everything. Stronger storytelling, stronger characters, a better world to explore, incredible visuals, and super fun combat. To me, my biggest problem with Tales games in the past was always their level design. They were so boring, super cookie cutter, and they kind of just felt like RPG Maker dungeons. But with Tales of Arise, it just felt so fun exploring these big open zones and, you know, getting to these big epic boss fights. And in terms of the action combat, it's hands down the best the series has seen yet. I think what makes the combats feel so fun and dynamic is the different ways you can call in characters to do team-up moves. You can just be hacking and slashing away, dodging, and then you can call in a character to do, you know, a little bit of damage, or you can do a big team up for a finisher, and those custom animations just look so cool. And as I've said time and time again, I love doing different outfits for my characters, and I love that the main collectible in this game were these different owls, and the more you collected, the more different outfits you got that were just visual. It didn't really do anything to, you know, increase your stats. It just changed how you look, and I just thought that was so cool. And this is definitely my favorite cast of characters and story of any Tales game too. Figuring out the story behind Alphen and discovering, you know, the heartbreak behind Shion and figuring out why she puts other people at arm's length and doesn't really want to connect with people. Now, admittedly, at the end, it gets a little over the top and kind of ruins things. The final dungeon is a little bit too long, but overall, this is such a fantastic game from top to bottom. Like I said, definitely my favorite in the series. Wouldn't mind if we even got a sequel to this game, but if they do make another Tales game, which I'm sure they will, they got to keep this particular formula because it's definitely a winner. This was the franchise's return to home console after a long hiatus, and it was a glorious one. The game pretty much had it all. 3 different story routes to choose from, giving it tons of replayability. An immense school setting where you could spend tons of free time in between story battles doing a huge variety of activities. A great unique art style and deep gameplay mechanics that included things like battalions where each character could kind of have a small group of troops with them, as well as gambits that gave characters unique abilities. Those 2 things kind of gave the battles a grander scale feeling than ever before. Then the game totally flips on its head about halfway through the game in a way that I won't spoil here, but if you've played through 3 Houses, you know what I mean. Now, normally I don't care about stories in strategy RPGs. To me, they're a little too broad, too political, or hard to actually feel the ramifications as the player, the boots on the ground soldier. But in 3 Houses, you really felt it. And I think why is because you spent so much time with your students in between story battles, whether it was just hanging out, having a meal, having tea, or whatever it was, and then you'd actually go to battle with them. To me, it made all the story moments feel much more personal. Simply put, it's the best modern strategy RPG, and I loved every second of it. Now, we couldn't do this list without Persona 5 Royal, right? I mean, it's hands down one of the best turn-based JRPGs probably of all time, definitely of the modern age. And I think what it does so well is it takes the formula that was established with Persona 3 and 4 and just cranks it up to 11. Obviously, the art style is so stylish. It looks incredible, the animation is amazing, and just let's talk about the menus. The menus are incredible. I don't think I've ever seen a game with stylish menus like Persona 5. And I think there are a lot of games today that are trying to copy it, but just not doing nearly as good of a job. It's also got an incredible soundtrack. That acid jazz just hits just right at all the different moments. Whether you're walking around in a rainy night or trying to get jazzed up for a battle or just some more quiet moment with a particular character, all the tracks in this game are incredible. But what Persona is famous for and why I really love it is its game loop. It has this really awesome balance of different gameplay things that you can do to always keep you hooked. So for example, it says, hey, go to this dungeon by this specific date, but it doesn't take you that entire time to do it. So you can say, okay, let's knock out the dungeon vacation, then let's, hang out with some friends or do some school activity or work a part-time job. It's fun because there's always something cool and unique to do and such an awesome world and set of characters to do it with. Now, I will admit that I'm a little bit salty with Persona 5 Royal. I recently replayed it on Switch and I didn't unlock the final semester, so I missed so much story, and maybe one day I'll go back, but still I'm a little salty. But also that combat. Man, I think it just is also nailed turn-based combat. Again, it's all about finding that weakness, following it up with another one and doing those all-out attacks. There are so many games that get turn-based combat wrong. It can just feel so slow and boring, but with Persona 5, man, they just always knock it out of the park with even normal enemies or the boss battles. To me, there's almost no modern turn-based JRPG that can touch Persona 5 Royal, except for one. Now, I know most people prefer Ys 8 with the island setting and the big open exploration of it, but for me, I just loved Ys 9. And I think the thing for me that really put it over the top was the gifts. The gifts gave you different ways to explore the world. For example, you could glide with the wings, you could run up walls, you could zip to different points and things like that. It was just so fun. I loved exploring the city to get different collectibles because it was so fun to use the different gifts. And the city of Balduke is designed in such a way that it really takes advantage of these different gifts. Lots of tall buildings, lots of areas where you have to glide or phase through walls or find little secret rooms and stuff like that. It was just so much fun to explore. Not to mention, as always, it has amazing combat. It's very arcadey, very fluid, very fun, and each character was fun to play. Normally in games like this, there are a couple stinker characters that you put off to the side and you don't really play because they're not that great. But for me, every single character was so fun. For me, though, my personal favorite was the doll. She just has this really cool acrobatic style that I just loved. She was such a blast to play with. Not to mention that incredible soundtrack. The rocking guitars are so much fun. It goes so well with the combat system. It just puts you in this like zen-like mode when you're, hacking and slashing away, just exploring through a zone with this awesome music blasting. Very few things like that. And the story was kind of interesting on its own too. I can't really talk too much about it without giving away major spoilers, but to say the least, it was not what I expected at all. And it also comes in at around 25 hours for me, which I feel like is the perfect length. I play so many games these days, I can't really get super invested in games that are really, really long. So for me, 25 hours is that sweet spot. However, I did end up getting the Platinum Trophy because I just wanted to do everything this game had to offer because it was just so much fun to play. And that's what I'll say about Ys 9 and why it's so high on my list. It was just pure fun to play. Out of all the games on this list, just the moment-to-moment gameplay, I don't know if I had more fun playing any games on this list than Ys 9. When I think of a good old classic JRPG adventure, Dragon Quest XI is exactly what comes to mind. It has a huge, massive world to explore with varied locations. Everything from a big castle town, an ice village, and even a cozy seaside town, plus many others. It has a wonderful cast of colorful characters. I loved everyone from the eccentric Sylvando to the badass Jade. Everyone was just so different than what you'd expect from a JRPG, like a pair of sisters and an old man. It was just so much fun. And of course, you can't have a classic JRPG without turn-based combat. And while the combat in Dragon Quest XI is just serviceable, it's not great, the definitive edition did speed it up and it made it much more tolerable. But one thing I do like about 11 is that each character kind of has a specific role, so it's kind of cool to be able to pick out the roles you want in your party. Not to mention, it just has this grand sense of adventure of saving the world. Nothing's more classic in a JRPG than a group of heroes traveling around to save the world. Now, is it the most innovative game ever? No. Does it break any new ground? Not really. But you know what? Sometimes a classic style JRPG is just what the doctor ordered, and for me, Dragon Quest XI easily stands as the best turn-based JRPG of the modern era, and just shy of the best overall JRPG of the modern era, which leaves only one game. And for number one, I had to go with Final Fantasy VII Remake. To me, this was just the best overall experience of any game on this list. I kind of had mixed feelings right when the game came out and right when I finished it, but I recently replayed it over Christmas break on PS5, but to me, this is just such a special game. I hold the original Final Fantasy VII in high regard, so how they recreated all these moments, they just did it so perfectly. Moments like Wall Market, we were really anticipating that, and not only did they do it well, but they just knocked it out of the park. And every single character is awesome as well. There were characters that were kind of caricatures like Barrett, and even Aerith I didn't really connect with as much in the original game, but here I loved every single party member. And even other side characters like Jessie, who doesn't really get a lot of time to shine in the original game, but here they give you so many more moments with her. And as far as the combat system, I think this is the best version of this system that they've tried to go for, where they build up a break meter, you break them, and then you can do big damage. It seems like that's what they were trying to do with the 13 games, but now it's come to full fruition here in 7 Remake. And every character was fun to play. Probably my favorite though had to be Tifa. I love characters that are fast and do a lot of quick damage, and she was just a blast to play. And we can't forget that music. Oh my gosh, the music in this game is so incredible. Just like everything else, not only did they bring back these tracks and modernize them, but they did it in such beautiful ways. And to me, those are what hit those emotional notes. Like Aerith's theme or just the main theme, whenever they hit, I can't help but get emotional. I'm not afraid to admit that I teared up quite a few times while playing this game. And because of everything I just said, I cannot wait for the sequel and see what they do and what they change and what they keep the same. Personally, I'm most looking forward to the Gold Saucer, but there's plenty of other moments that I can't wait to see. Now, these are all JRPGs of the modern era that have already come out, but there may be even others coming out really soon that could be even better. And to see what JRPGs are set to release for 2024, make sure you check out this video right here. And special thanks to Reset Switch, Tyler Kuzawa, and the Miyazaki Man for supporting me over on Patreon. To get exclusive videos and other cool perks, consider supporting me over on patreon.com/thegaming shelf. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.